Welcome everyone to the Snake Cryptids Iceberg Explained. Today we'll be looking into the world of mysterious snake cryptids and sightings across the world. Tier 1. Congo Snake. In 1959, Colonel Remy van Lierde, who was a pilot in the Belgian Royal Air Force, was flying a routine helicopter patrol over the Katanga region of the Congo. He had flown more than 400 missions, so he was used to noticing details on the ground. But during this flight, him and his co-pilot saw something very unexpected. It was a snake so large that he estimated it to be over 50 feet long. If his estimate was correct, the snake would have been far larger than any known living species. Today, the largest snakes include the green anaconda and the reticulated python. Green anacondas are known for their bulk and usually grow to around 15 feet, but some even grow longer. Reticulated pythons are the longest snakes that can stretch over 20 feet. By comparison, Van Lierde's snake would have been more than double the length of these modern giants. In a 1980 interview for the British TV show Mysterious World, he shared more details about the sighting. He said that as his helicopter passed over the snake, it lifted part of his body nearly 10 feet into the air. He believed that if he flew closer, the snake might have attacked. He also thought it was large enough to easily eat a human if it got close enough. Van Lierde guessed that the snake's head was about 2 feet wide, which is much larger than any head of a modern snake. For comparison, even the largest green anaconda would have a mid-body diameter of just over 1 foot. The African rock python, which is the biggest snake in the Congo region, can grow up to 20 feet in rare cases. However, even that is so much smaller than the snake Van Lierde described. To support his claim, he took a photograph of the snake. The photo, although it's blurry, shows what looks like a large snake lying around vegetation. However, the exact size of the snake is unclear because the surrounding landscape makes it hard to identify. Some people think the shapes around the snake might be bushes or grass. Others have suggested that dark shapes could be termite mounds, which are common in the Katanga region and can grow really large. Ivan Sanderson studied the photograph and he suggested that the snake could have been longer than what Van Lierde had thought, potentially almost 200 feet long. Sanderson believed that the dark shapes in the photo were termite mounds, which can grow almost 26 feet tall and more than 50 feet wide. Based on this, he thought that the snake must have been enormous. Despite these claims though, scientists haven't found any evidence of a snake that's this large. Sucuriju. The Sucuriju is from the mountainous areas of western Japan. It is often said to live in dark, watery caves in regions like Shikoku and Honshu. People claim you might hear signs of its presence, such as mice-like squeals near rivers or even human-like voices mimicking conversations from deep within caves. Sucuriju are described as being 30 to 80 centimeters long. It is said to look like a very fat snake with its middle much wider than its head and tail. Its body is covered with large, plate-like scales. Like many snakes, it's reported to have fangs and venom too. Some stories say the Sucuriju can jump up to a meter and even perform a second jump when it's midair. Others describe it as swallowing its tail and rolling like a wheel, similar to the hoop snake. Sightings of the Sucuriju have been reported for many years, and belief in its existence is pretty strong in some parts of Japan. Every May 3rd, the Sucuriju festival is held in Higashihirakawa, Gifu Prefecture, where locals trace the roots of the legend. During this festival, people search for the creature and a prize of $11,000 is offered to anyone who captures it. The government of Yoshi, Okayama, once announced a reward of 20 million yen, which is $200,000, for its capture. There have been many reported encounters with the Sucuriju over the years. In June 1994, a man named Kazuaki Noda and his wife claimed they had saw a large snake with a body as thick as a beer bottle and a head similar to a tortoise's. On May 8, 2000, there was a farmer named Shugi Tanaka who reported seeing 2 snakes with metallic colored bodies and tails like rats. Later that year in June, there was a woman named Mitsuku Arima and she said she saw a Sucuriju swimming in a river. She described it as having a round face with large floating eyes that stared directly at her. She remembered asking, "Who are you?" but the creature just stared silently. Arima, who was over 80 years old at the time, said she had never seen anything like it in her life. There's also one unusual story that involves a farmer who saw a Sucuriju while cutting grass. He described it as having a face like Doraemon, which is a famous Japanese cartoon character. He claimed to have injured it with his weed whacker, but the creature escaped. A few days later, there was an elderly woman who found its dead body near a stream and buried it without realizing its importance. When local authorities heard about this, they dug up the body and sent it to a university for study. There was a professor who examined it and said it might have been a Sucuriju, but concluded that it was scientifically just some type of snake. Over the years, people have found other bodies and shed skins, but most of these are turned out to belong to already known snake species. There are a few theories about what people may actually be seeing. Some think that most Sucuriju sightings are cases of mistaken identity, where ordinary snakes that recently ate and developed a bulge in their middle were misidentified. Others think the creature might actually be a blue-tongued skink, which is a type of lizard sometimes kept as a pet in Japan. However, this theory doesn't fully explain sightings that occurred before the skinks were introduced to Japan in the 1970s, when they were still rare. Lastly, some people believe Sucuriju might just be an entirely new species of snake. Yakumama. The Yakumama is a giant snake-like creature believed to inhabit the Amazon River basin. It is described as being up to 60 meters long and reverenced among the communities living near rivers. According to local shamans, the Yakumama is associated with a site known as the Boiling River. The creature is considered the mother of all marine life and possesses an extraordinary ability to draw in any living thing within a distance of 100 paces. To avoid unknowingly entering its territories, locals blow on a conch horn before approaching the river. This is said to cause the Yakumama to reveal itself if it is nearby, providing a warning to those who might be in danger. Stories of encounters with the Yakumama have been passed down for many generations. There's one notable account from the 1900s involving two men who attempted to kill the creature by placing an explosive in the river. After the explosion, there was a massive snake reportedly covered in blood emerging from the water. Despite its injuries, the creature swam away, leaving the men terrified. Theories about the Yakumama's identity often involve comparisons to known or extinct species. Some think that the creature could be a living example of a titanoboa, which is a prehistoric snake that lived around 60 million years ago. Fossil evidence shows that the titanoboa could grow to about 12 meters long. However, some researchers believe it might have been reached even longer lengths. Grootslang. The Grootslang is said to inhabit South Africa's Orange River. It's described as a giant snake-like creature, and reports of sightings often involve large serpents like the African rock python, which is the continent's biggest snake. Some researchers, like Bernard Heuvelmans, compared the Grootslang to a long-necked sea serpent, which he classified as Megalotauria longicollis. Early accounts of the Grootslang go back to the travels of Sir Edward James Alexander in the 1830s. He heard stories from the locals about a massive snake that left a track a foot wide in the sand and had a coiled body as large as a wagon wheel. People believe the creature's appearance at the river mouth was a sign of good rainfall. He also heard tales of strange cries coming from the river, similar to those of children. There is one story that a creature was said to have emerged from the water and eaten a newborn calf. Explorer Frederick Carthers Cornell recorded similar stories in the Richardsveld region near where the Fish and Orange rivers meet. The Khoikhoi people believed in the Grootslang, and some claim to have seen its enormous trail, which is described as over 4 feet wide. Reports from a missionary, Father Wolf, told of a giant snake preying on livestock, but his attempts to find the creature were unsuccessful. J.L.B. Smith, who was an ichthyologist, also heard stories of giant snakes in the Orange River during his childhood. Sightings of the Grootslang go back many decades. In the 1860s, Hans Sawyer, which was a young boy at the time, said he saw a large black snake swimming in the Orange River. His father and a neighbor attempted to follow it in a rowboat, however the creature disappeared among rocks. Later, in 1899, trader G.A. Kinnear described a massive snake coming up briefly from the river near Uppington. Its head measured 7 to 8 inches wide, and its visible body was around 8 to 10 feet long. In 1910, an American traveler named Camayer reported seeing a huge snake-like creature drag a calf into the river near the Augerbees Falls while camping with Cornell. There was another prospector, Ernest Hayes, who claimed to have seen the Grootslang in 1929 from a distance of 300 yards at the confluence of the Goinie and Orange Rivers. Namibian flying snake. The Namibian flying snake is described as an enormous snake varying in color from yellow and brown with light spots to solid black. Its reported lengths range from 9 to 25 feet and is said to have the ability to blend into its surroundings with camouflage. The snake has a few unusual features such as bioluminescent crest, horns, and a neck that can expand. It also has leathery bat-like wings with a wingspan of 30 feet, letting it fly for certain amounts of time. Witnesses claim it makes a loud, terrifying roar and has a tar-like odor and scales covering its body. In order to take flight, it's said to launch itself down large hills. The Namibian flying snake has been sighted primarily in the Karis region of Namibia. One of the earliest recorded encounters was in 1942 when Michael Esterhuis, who was a shepherd tending to sheep on a farm 60 kilometers west of Keetmanshoop, reported seeing a massive snake hurling down a mountain. He claimed to have encountered the creature on 2 other occasions as well. Later in the 1950s, there was another incident reported near Guegeb. A group of farmers and missionaries discovered 7 dead sheep, each having 2 puncture wounds consistent with snake bites. Oddly, there were suit-like patches found on the surrounding ground and on the wool of the sheep, suggesting the presence of an unusual animal. In 1978, there was a French farmer in the Karis region who also detailed an account with the creature. While tending to his cattle, he witnessed a bright white light heading toward him. A few moments later, he heard a loud thud followed by the pained cries of one of his cows. When he investigated, he saw a massive snake-like creature and described it to local police as resembling a dragon. The farmer noted its bright, blinding crest of light, brown and yellow coloration, and green eyes. He also stated that there was a strong tar-like smell and observed smoke coming from its nostrils. Tier 2. Hoop Snake. The hoop snake is a creature from North America and is said to inhabit regions around Wisconsin, Minnesota, and parts of Canada. This creature is described as moving in a unique way by biting the end of its tail, forming its body into a circular hoop. In this form, the hoop snake is said to roll at very fast speeds, striking with a venomous stinger located at the tip of its tail. Its venom is described as deadly and is said that only a tree can provide protection. A tactic for escaping the creature involves jumping through a hoop, which is said to confuse it and stop its attack. One of the first references to the hoop snake goes back to 1784 in a letter that describes its peculiar movement. According to this letter, while the snake can crawl like other serpents, it adopts the hoop shape when chasing prey, using the stinger at the center of the hoop as its primary weapon. The writer says that this form of movement is reserved for attacks, while the snake goes back to crawling on its belly when retreating from danger. Because of this unusual movement, it was given the name hoop snake. It is said to have a girth of about 7 inches, and its head has features like fangs, hollow black eyes, and tiny nostrils, while its body is marked with alternating black and white rings. The venom from its stinger is described as purple and highly toxic, with warnings against using its stinger to carve due to its potency. Changshe. Changshe is a large serpent from ancient Chinese bestiaries. These texts described it as an enormous, snake-like creature said to measure around 800 feet in length. Its massive body was covered in scales, with bristles protruding between them. The Changshe was believed to inhabit the Greater Unity Mountain. There is one account that describes the sound it makes being similar to the noise of a watchman's clapper, which is a rhythmic, hollow sound that's commonly used in ancient times to mark hours or warn anyone of danger. Ancient civilizations often feared serpents and attributed them to great power, wisdom, or danger. There are explanations for the origin of the Changshe, which often point to the possibility of ancient encounters with large snakes. Fossil records have showed evidence of massive prehistoric serpents, like the Titanoboa, which lived around 60 million years ago. The Titanoboa was the largest known snake in history and reached up to 40 feet in length and weighed over a ton. Its size and nature suggests that ancient humans or early society might have encountered similar large reptiles, leading to stories of giant serpents like the Changshe. In regions where ancient people had little scientific understanding of the creatures around them, any sighting of a large snake could have led to strange stories. Over time, these reports grew in scale and detail, with the snake's size and abilities becoming more exaggerated. Changshe, although has incredible size, bristling scales, and haunting sounds, probably originated from a blend of real encounters and imagination of ancient people. It's also possible that the Changshe, like other giant snakes, served a cultural or symbolic purpose. Such stories may have been used to explain natural phenomena like the movement of rivers or a rumbling of earthquakes, which could be attributed to a massive serpent stirring underground or in the mountains. Macanci. The Macanci is a giant aquatic snake said to inhabit the Amazon region of Ecuador. It's known for its large size and is often compared to the anaconda, which is one of the largest snakes in the world. However, this snake may pass the anaconda in size and also predatory capabilities. This large snake is said to prey on both humans and animals, making it quite dangerous to the region's inhabitants. In addition to the Macanci, there is another creature in the same area called the Iwansi. Unlike the Macanci, which is aquatic and associated with rivers and swamps, the Iwansi is described as a terrestrial snake living on land but exhibiting similar massive portions and predatory behavior. Theories about the origins of the Macanci and Iwansi often link them to prehistoric snakes. Titanoboa, which is a massive serpent and lived a long time ago, is usually mentioned as a possible ancestor. It was a dominant predator in its ecosystem and was able to prey on large animals. Some cryptozoologists speculate that the Macanci and Iwansi could be descendants of this ancient species or represent a relict population that survived in isolated parts of the Amazon. The dense, remote rainforests of the Amazon provide an ideal setting for the survival of undiscovered species. Given the region's vastness and the many areas that remain unexplored, it's not exactly impossible for creatures like these snakes to exist by going undetected from scientific documentation. Reports of giant snakes in the Amazon, including the Macanci, have persisted for generations. Nabau. The Nabau is a giant snake said to measure over 100 feet in length, with a body as thick as a drum. It's described as a python-like serpent, which is far larger and more powerful than any known species of snake. The Nabau has been sighted in various locations across Sarawak, including Stambak, Ulu, Li and Bitong, and also Belay River near Kapit. One of the most well-known accounts occurred in 2009 when a member of the Disaster Relief Committee, Cebu, was monitoring flood conditions in Ulu Rajang in a helicopter. While flying over a tributary of the Belay River at around 5:30 p.m., he spotted what appeared to be an enormous snake moving through the water. Cebu managed to capture photographs of the creature from the helicopter, which later added to discussions and speculation about the existence of large snakes in the region. The Iban community also tell the story of the Temengagong Ko, which is the father of Datuk Kent Kanyan, who was a respected Iban leader during the regime. After his death in the 1950s, it was said that the Tenegong Ko transformed into a Nabau and appeared in people's dreams. Algerian hairy viper. The Algerian hairy viper is from North Africa and reported only once in January 1852 near the village of Draria, Algeria. This creature was described as a 2-foot-long snake covered in thick brownish red hair. The only recorded sighting came when villagers walked through a forest near Draria, noticed what appeared to be hair growing around the trunk of a tree. When they looked closer, the hair began to move, revealing itself as a hairy snake going down the trunk. The villagers watched as the snake hissed at them before vanishing into the undergrowth. This encounter left the villagers surprised, as nothing like it had ever been seen before in the region. The story of the Algerian hairy viper was noticed by the Museum of Natural History in Paris. A team of researchers traveled to Algeria to find the snake and adding it to the museum's collection, but despite their efforts, there was no trace of the creature. There are a few theories regarding the nature of the Algerian hairy viper. Some cryptozoologists suggest that it could have been an undiscovered species of snake with hair-like structures on its body. Others think it might not have been a snake at all, but instead a giant hairy caterpillar due to its size and appearance of hair. Lastly, a theory says that what the villagers saw wasn't one large organism, but a tightly grouped cluster of hairy caterpillars which could resemble a moving hairy snake. There's also a more conventional explanation, suggesting that the creature could have been a stoat or a weasel, which are slender, long-bodied mammals native to Algeria. Stoats, when crouched low to the ground and move quickly, could be mistaken for a snake covered in fur, especially due to dim light of a forest. North African giant snake. Gigantophis garstini is an extinct species of snake from the family of madozoids. Fossil evidence, including vertebrae and jawbone fragments, were found in North Africa in areas such as Mali and Egypt, with discoveries dating back to 1903 and 1993. Based on these fossils, researchers estimate that the snake measured between 11.7 and 18 meters long. This snake lived during the Eocene epoch, which was around 40 to 35 million years ago, when the landscape of North Africa was quite different from the arid savannas that we know today. The fossil sites suggest the region was once covered in dense rainforests, swamps, and coastal wetlands, which provided an ideal habitat for a snake of such a large size. Gigantophis likely led a semi-aquatic lifestyle, using water to support its large body, which is similar to the modern-day green anacondas. Scientists have noted that a snake of this size would struggle to move efficiently on just land, which suggests it relied on aquatic environments. It is also thought to have been a predator capable of hunting large prey such as proboscideans, which are ancestors of elephants. These ancient animals were comparable in size to today's rhinoceroses, making them challenging but rewarding targets for a snake of such a size. Some researchers have speculated that Gigantophis might have survived into more recent periods, possibly as late as 10,000 years ago during the Holocene epoch. This would possibly mean that the species had an extended evolutionary timeline, giving it ample opportunity to adapt and potentially grow even larger under favorable conditions. However, there's no conclusive evidence to support this theory. The discovery of other large prehistoric snakes, like the aquatic Paleophis species from Paleocene northern Africa, shows the diversity of ancient serpents in the region. These snakes, which thrived in coastal marshlands, help the idea that many ancient snakes were specialized for specific ecological spaces, which helps our understanding of their adaptations and behavior. Modern reports of giant snakes continue to emerge from regions of Africa, including Senegal, Guinea, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Rwanda. Witnesses describe seeing snakes ranging from 15 to 20 meters long, with occasional claims of even larger specimens going past 30 meters. With these accounts remaining unverified, they still add to possibilities of enormous snakes surviving in remote areas. Now, determining the true size and biology of Gigantophis is troubling due to the limited fossil records. Tier 4. Crowing crested cobra. The crowing crested cobra is reported from Central Africa, specifically from Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. This snake is unique because of its alleged ability to produce rooster-like crowing sounds and the presence of crests or wattles on its head. While sightings of snakes making crowing noises are pretty frequent, reports of snakes with both vocal and physical features resembling those of a rooster are pretty rare. Similar snakes have also been reported in the Caribbean, China, and Polynesia, where the latter is known as Vivimi gata, but it lacks the crested feature. The earliest mention of a crowing snake comes from David Livingstone's journals, published in the Last Journals of David Livingstone, 1874. Livingstone described two distinct types of snakes, one of which was well authenticated to produce a sound resembling the crowing of a young rooster. His servant Abdullah Susi mentioned a large, venomous snake known locally as bubu, which had red, wattle-like markings and could attack entire caravans by striking from tree branches. Susi claimed that the creature could be killed by boiling water, which it would dive into when attempting to strike. Missionary Bishop Changshe Maples also wrote about the snake in an 1881 letter. He described a 12-foot-long mamba-like serpent with a crest resembling a rooster's comb, said to pursue and attack humans. Locals in Nyasaland, which is now Malawi, feared the snake so much that they abandoned paths near its territory. Reports of the crowing crested cobra came into the 20th century. In 1922, there are accounts from Rhodesia which describe the snake in local newspapers, and herpetologist Arthur Loveridge later traveled to East Africa in search of it. By the 1940s, the snake became a topic in African and British media. For instance, locals attributed a man's death in Namwala to a Nyukanga, which is a giant red-throated snake known for its crowing call. Around the same time as this, there were debates about the possibility of vocalizing snakes which appeared in the Times of London. Some experts dismissed the idea, while others thought it could be plausible. Later in 1959, a settler in Zimbabwe, John Knott, claimed to have run over a crested snake in his car. He described the snake as black, 6 feet long, with a tortoise-like head and a distinct symmetrical crest on its neck. After the incident, local people identified the creature as a crowing snake. There are theories about the crowing crested cobra, but they vary widely. Some think it could be a misidentified black mamba, which is one of the most venomous snakes in Africa, which sometimes fails to shed its skin properly and creates the appearance of a crest. Others point to horned vipers like the rhinoceros viper or Gabon viper, which have similar head features. Also, some reports of crowing snakes may have come from animals such as tree hyraxes or birds mistaken for snakes because of their distinctive vocalizations. Mbói jagua. The Mbói jagua is from Paraguay and is widely reported across the region. It's described as a massive aquatic creature and is said to measure between 20 and 30 meters long. In 1911, Alexander K. MacDonald reported the Mbói jagua and said it has a head resembling that of a dog's, a hooked tail used to capture prey, and emits a yelping sound similar to those of a puppy. MacDonald recounted a story of an Indian being attacked by one while crossing a river in Kaguazu. He said that the sightings of the Mbói jagua were reported in the Great Laguna, Ibera, and Corrientes, which are various parts of Paraguay, and the Riachos, which are streams of the Chaco region. Local communities, including indigenous people, Peruvians, and the residents of Corrientes, consistently described the creature with similarities and emphasized its distinctive appearance and behaviors. Charles W. T. Craig documented a similar creature in the Gran Chaco, describing it as a slug-like snake with a body as broad as a horse, a dog-like head, and a stumpy tail with a venomous barb. Cryptozoologist Bernard Heuvelmans speculated that reports of the Mbói jagua might come from sightings of the Manguru, which is a giant catfish that locals claim can grow up to 18 feet long. This theory suggests that descriptions of the Manguru alongside other elements may have led to tales of the Mbói jagua. In February 1972, there were reports of a Peruvian barking snake, which captured by government surveyors in the jungle and displayed it at Asunción's Botanical and Zoological Garden. It is widely believed that the captured animal was a pregnant green anaconda, whose unusual appearance may have been misinterpreted and sensationalized by journalists. This misidentification likely led to the dog-headed snake incident. Lao. The Lao is from the White Nile region in present-day South Sudan and is described as a massive, serpentine creature with unique features such as barbels and a crest. Stories about the Lao have been told by various groups in the area, including the Nuer, Dinka, and Shilluk peoples. While it is often compared to a giant snake, some think it may be a type of enormous catfish. Others link the Lao to the Lukwada, which is a similar creature reported found in Lake Victoria. The Lao was first documented in 1923 by Henry Cecil Jackson, who mentioned rumors of a third type of python in the Nuer region, alongside the two known African rock python species. Jackson doubted its existence, but noted that locals referred to it as nyal, the same term which is used for regular pythons. His reports described a creature that could grow up to 40 feet long. Naturalist John Guile Melius later gathered more detailed accounts, including reports of the Lao's distinctive rumbling sound during the rainy season, which locals believed signified its presence in the marshes. Captain William Hitchens also investigated the Lao and collected stories from hunters and locals, some of whom claimed the creature could use its tentacle-like facial features to ensnare prey. Another significant contributor to the Lao's existence was Thomas Richard Hornby Owen, who described the Lao as a deeply mythologized entity. According to the Owen, the Dinka referred to the creature as a punishing spirit, attributing to it the power to kill with a single glance. Locals believed the Lao dwelled in calm, deep waters surrounded by marsh vegetation, and that it left distinct trails on land during the dry season. Now, descriptions of the Lao vary, with some accounts claiming it could reach lengths of 100 feet, while others describe smaller specimens of around 12 feet. Its coloration is said to range from light brown to dark yellow. Reports often include unique physical features like a crest resembling that of a crowned crane or tentacle-like appendages used for capturing prey. Also, the creature was said to have a sharp, bony projection on its underside. The Lao was believed to inhabit marshes and wetlands such as the Sud and Bahr el Arab. The Nuer associated the creature with danger and regarded its bones as powerful talismans. In 1914, there was a large specimen which was allegedly killed by Shilluk hunters, and some of its bones were sent to the British Museum, but there was no conclusive identification made. Another piece of physical evidence was a wooden carving of the Lao's head, which Captain Hitchens obtained from a Tanzanian sculptor who claimed to have seen the creature. Sachamama. The Sachamama is reported from the Peruvian Amazon. It's described as a massive, snake-like creature and unique in its appearance since it has a shell-like structure on its back and prominent horns. When this creature awakens, it is said to be capable of inhaling prey from a distance, though its movement is hindered by a large, heavy shell and prevents it from pursuing prey through the jungle. Descriptions of the Sachamama vary slightly among the witnesses. Maximo Inakwari, who was a villager from Nueva Tacna, described it as a large, black, cylindrical creature that left a massive trench approximately 1,600 feet long and 30 feet wide in its path. Luis Iluma, which is another eyewitness, provided more details, saying the creature was 131 to 132 feet in length and 15 to 16 feet in diameter. According to Iluma, its snake-like body had a shell in the middle and also a muzzle, two trunk-like appendages, and a large ear-like structure measuring 3 feet each. Historical evidence of the Sachamama shows up in ancient Peruvian artifacts. Pottery from the Mochi culture, which dates back over 1500 years ago, depicts large, snake-like creatures with tentacle-like appendages and shells. Similar imagery was also documented in 16th century Peruvian pottery, showing forked tongues and feelers which resembled those described in modern accounts. One of the most notable sightings occurred in August 14, 1997, near the village of Nueva Tacna. Witnesses reported hearing a loud rumbling from the jungle, as if a large, heavy creature was moving through it. Inuakari, who was on a boat in the nearby Nabau River, claimed to have seen the creature emerge from the jungle, leaving behind a wide trench and felling numerous trees before entering the river. When it reached the water, it apparently created a whirlpool that sank many boats. While Inuakari reported seeing only its dark, snake-like form, Iluma, who viewed it against the setting sun, saw its shell and other distinguishing features. Photographs of the destruction caused by the creature were taken, and the incident was significant enough for the local military to investigate this. Explanations for the Sachamama range from natural phenomena to cryptozoological theories. Some suggest that the destruction might have been caused by heavy construction machinery, but local officials dismissed this, saying that the area was inaccessible. Other theories propose that the damage could have been resulted from flooding, strong winds, or even an earthquake, but the selective nature of the path and the lack of reported wind dismisses these possibilities. Peruvian scientist Nixon Reguifa initially thought the incident was from flooding, but later reconsidered after examining the evidence. A cryptozoologist known as Carl Schucker proposed that the Sachamama might not have been a snake, but instead a giant mollusk or an unknown species of long-necked turtle, since it had a shell and tentacle-like features. He argued that these physical characteristics suggest a creature unrelated to any known serpentine species. This aligns with local descriptions that emphasize its unique anatomy and pretty strange behavior. Tier 4. Nguma-monene. The Nguma-monene is reported from the Republic of the Congo's Motaba River and parts of eastern Cameroon. Descriptions consistently portray it as a massive serpentine creature measuring between 30 and 40 feet in length and 2 to 3 feet in diameter. It's said to have a snake-like head and neck with a forked tongue that flicks in and out and a serrated ridge running along its back. Its short legs and low-slung body give it a crocodilian or lizard-like appearance. The Nguma-monene's skin is described as grayish-brown, blending well with its swampy environment. The Yoli of Cameroon is often linked to the Nguma-monene. It is similarly described as a snake-like creature but with limbs large enough to rise above the tallest trees. The Yoli reportedly moves quickly through the water and swamps and feeds on birds and monkeys. Some accounts say the Yoli can generate an electric current, such as the electric catfish, which are native to the Congo basin. The Baka people fear the creature but have said to kill specimens using spears and dogs. One of the earliest reported sightings came from 1961 when the eldest sister of Mitchell Zawatu, who was the first Secretary of General Assembly, encountered the Nguma-monene while bathing in a river. She described a large snake-like head and neck emerging about 15 meters from her. Her cries alerted nearby villagers, who watched as the creature flicked its forked tongue and moved through the water. Another sighting took place in 1971 when missionary Joseph Ellis observed a 30-foot-long serpentine creature with a serrated back while paddling down the Motaba River. He watched it swim across the river before disappearing into the tall grass on the opposite bank, never raising its body far off the ground. Now, cryptozoologist Roy P. Mackle studied this cryptid and ruled out the possibility of it being an oversized crocodile, noting the witnesses were familiar with crocodiles and clearly distinguished the creature based on its tongue and ridged back. Mackle proposed that the Nguma-monene was likely a snake. Since no known snake species has a serrated ridge, he concluded that it could be a type of lizard. While monitors are Africa's largest known lizards, they lack ridged backs and don't reach the reported size of the Nguma-monene. He thinks that the creature might be a modern descendant of Dolichosaurs, which are a group of primitive, semi-aquatic lizards with elongated bodies and short limbs. Badigui. The Badigui in Banda is from Broch Ochu and Gunda rivers in the Central African Republic, with possible sightings from Equatorial Guinea. According to accounts from Lucien Blancu, the Badigui is a smooth-skinned, hairless creature and described as a gigantic snake with tracks measuring 3 to 5 feet wide. Its flat snake-like head is slightly larger than that of a python and has a long neck which is quite thick and extends much farther than a giraffe's. The creature's skin reportedly has snake-like markings with a lighter underside. The Badigui is said to be dangerous, with reports of it killing hippopotamuses by strangling it and leaving no external injuries. It is also believed to feed on tree branches by raising its head out of the water to browse on leaves. No torso of it has ever been described, and its body is thought to remain submerged. In 1934, an elderly Baya man named Musa stated an encounter with the Badigui when he was around 14 years old, which is an event Blancu estimated around 1890. Musa claimed to have seen the creature lifting its head to eat the leaves of a roro tree while him and his father were laying fish traps during the rainy season. There's another account from 1928 which describes a Badigui crushed a manioc field which belonged to a Linda Banda chief, leaving behind large tracks. Around the same time, the creature apparently killed a hippopotamus in the Brochochu River near Chief Mapuka's village, and the villagers consumed the carcass. Biancu's gun-bearer, Mitikata, also reported seeing tracks around 1930. Bernard Heuvelmans proposed that the Badigui most probably has a bulky, hidden torso beneath the water, as the snake would not be able to lift its head so far without coiling its body for support. He also found that the Badigui's reported diet of tree leaves was pretty unusual, saying that no known snake is herbivorous. Roy P. Mackle also found that the dietary claim was implausible and speculated that the Badigui might be linked to other creatures such as the Nguma-monene or Lau, which he theorized could be giant, ridge-backed monitor lizards. Beithir. The Beithir is described as a snake-like being, and its length is reported from 10 to 20 feet. Some accounts include distinctive features like an ear-like structure on its head and a head that makes up about 10% of its total length. The first known sighting of a Beithir occurred in the 1930s near Lac a Mahudul, a Mahulid, where a 3-meter-long creature was seen moving onto the shore. On September 30, 1965, around 11:30 p.m., Maureen Ford and a friend were driving along the A85 near the River Tay when they encountered a strange, gray legless creature with a long body and an ear-like protrusion on its head. Around an hour and a half later, around 1 a.m. on October 1st, another individual, Robert Swanky, spotted a similar creature along the same road. Swanky estimated its length to be around 20 feet, with a head measuring around 2 feet. He described its body as humped and resembled a caterpillar in shape. Later on in 1975, 5 fishermen reported seeing a Beithir upstream of the falls of Kilmarnock. The creature was startled by their presence and apparently stretched out and swam across the gorge Beaufort Castle before disappearing. Sucuriju Gigante. The Sucuriju Gigante, which is also known as a giant anaconda, is a serpent that inhabited the rivers of South America. Some speculate that the Sucuriju Gigante might be a descendant of prehistoric snakes like Gigantophis garstini, which reached 33 feet in length during the Eocene, or Titanoboa, which is a colossal snake from 50 to 60 million years ago that grew up to 43 feet long. Although modern anacondas are typically 20 to 30 feet long, there are numerous accounts that suggest much larger specimens may exist. One of the most famous encounters with a possible Sucuriju Gigante comes from Lieutenant Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett, who was a very well-known English explorer. During his expeditions in the Amazon, Fawcett reported encountering a massive snake along the Rio Negro. As his boat drifted downstream, he observed a triangular head and several feet of undulating body near the water surface. Grabbing his rifle, he fired a .44 caliber soft-nosed bullet into the snake's spine, which was roughly 10 feet behind its head. The creature thrashed violently and sent heavy impacts against the boat's keel and frothing the water around it. Despite the danger, Fawcett convinced his frightened crew to steer ashore, where they cautiously approached the injured snake. He estimated the anaconda's total length at 62 feet, with 45 feet of its body visible on land and another 17 feet submerged in the water. Its body was only 12 inches in diameter and seemed emaciated because of starvation. Despite his attempt to take a piece of the snake's skin, its sudden spasms forced him and his crew to retreat. His encounter wasn't the only one of a giant anaconda though. Earlier, he had heard from a manager at Jorngas about an anaconda measuring 58 feet killed in the lower Amazon. Members of the Brazilian Boundary Commission also spoke of a snake over 80 feet long, which was allegedly killed in the Rio Paraguay. Fawcett said that local tribes and rubber pickers frequently described colossal anacondas, with some trails and swamps measuring up to 6 feet wide. Another notable sighting comes from 1846 when George Gardner saw a 33-foot-long dead anaconda in Brazil. In 1922, Father Victor Hines claimed to witness a nearly 80-foot-long snake near Oboidos on the Amazon's shores. Hines later reported another sighting in 1929 near the Rio Piaba, where two glowing lights, believed to be the snake's eyes, and appeared on the water's surface. Similar reports came from trader Raimondo Zima in Jiao Penha in 1930, with the latter witnessing a snake that pushed 900 feet of submerged debris. In 1948, a newspaper in Pernambuco published a photo of an anaconda said to be 131 feet long, but the size was not verified. In 1947, painter Serge Bonacas claimed to have seen a Sucuriju in the swampy area between the Rio Manso and Rio Cristalino. With 20 other witnesses present, he estimated the snake's length to be around 70 feet long. Botanist Grace Rebelo dos Santos provided a more recent account in 1995, saying there were glowing lights in the water and large, heavy objects snagging fishnets, which could be another sign of a giant anaconda. Giant Snake of Amagaike. The giant snake of Amagaike is said to originate from Nishi Ward, Nagoyo City in Aichi Prefecture, Japan. In January 1555, Mata Zemon had an encounter near the pond known as Amagaike. He described seeing a massive black snake lying on the pond's bank. The creature's body was very thick and its head resembled that of a deer. Its eyes were bright and it had a large red tongue. While the snake initially faced the pond, it turned to look at Mata Zemon, who was startled and ran away. The story of this giant snake caught the attention of someone by the name of Oda Nobunaga. Intrigued by the tale, he ordered the pond to be drained in an attempt to capture the creature. When majority of the water was gone, he even entered the pond himself to conduct the search. But despite these efforts, there was no trace of this creature found. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and make sure to comment, like, and subscribe.